stop telling me you weren't sending a message to Antonio Gibson. You were.
Right.
He took the opening kickoff back. And then if you tell me he's been doing this all along, how did I never notice that?
Right.
No, he hasn't.
No, he hasn't.
And then, if you want to just kind of just stop this nonsense about who starts, who doesn't start, and I actually don't think the coaches care because they have gone back to, we've been saying all along they're both going to play. It's not like they're not going to both play. But the starting running back was Brian Robinson. So if you're trying to stop that storyline from manifesting itself, you're not doing a very good job of stamping it down. In fact, all you're doing is really kind of bringing it out. That said, what you saw Gibson do was the role they're going to put him in. And it is going to be a big role. Like, there is no, he's not going to play or he's on the outs or anything like that. He is a weapon. He is a tremendous player in space. I have felt this way for 2 years. I thought the Curtis Samuel injury hurt them in a way because I think they would have utilized him more out of the backfield had Samuel been available to them. When he wasn't, and they made some decisions like cutting a veteran like Peyton Barber, they started to have to lean on him as a primary running back, and it's not the spot where he's going to excel. And I think we've just kind of reached this point where that fumble was eye-opening enough that they went, you know what? This rookie knows how to play the position in the way we want him to play the position, and let's just get Gibson the ball in space as much as possible. And one of the catches he made, he dodges a defender, and it looks like it's going to the house. He can be a devastating impact player for them in space, so it's going to be up to them for them to figure that out with him. And it doesn't mean he's not going to run the ball. Of course he is. At times he will. I just think we now know Brian Robinson is going to carry the ball a lot. And so alert your fantasy draft. Brian Robinson's going to carry the ball a lot in the traditional sets. When Gibson comes in, we'll see. And I do think they're more inclined to, while I'm sure they'll do inside handoffs to him and try to get some counter stuff and get him a hole somewhere, they're more inclined to swing something out of the backfield to him, try to get him in space. And that's where of all the weapons that they have, he's the one that I think could be the game breaker of all of them. Because he's the one that catches a 5-yard pass and turns it into a 60-yard play.
Right, of course.
He's the one that does that.
Yeah.
So I still think he has a really big role. And maybe this is a relief for him. Maybe. In the end, it might be. Maybe not to his agent, but to him, it might be because he's more inclined to make bigger plays if they utilize him correctly than the way they had. And I think we're at a point where they've just lost trust that he's going to run the ball between the tackles the way they want him to, and he's just too loose with it. And turnovers will kill you. And so it felt like a major shift happened really. This is the second major shift that happened real fast, like overnight. And they keep saying it didn't, but I don't believe that. It's like hard to believe that. Like, if they told me Sam Mills was going to be fired 6 months ago, I would have believed it. It felt overnight that he was just gone. And this is the second time now, Antonio Gibson fumbled the ball, and they're like, that's it. And just like, that was it. Shut the door on it. So don't cross that group right now. You do anything to cross that group right now, they turn the boat sideways fast on you right now.
One thing I will get a little cynical about, though, is this is the second thing this offseason, though, where Rivera seemingly doesn't just make a decision. He doesn't make a decision, and it kind of goes a little sideways on him. Like, I look at it from what I talked about a couple weeks ago, where Matt Ioannidis didn't want to be here, which we don't know why still, but then, maybe it had to do with the coach. We don't know, whatever. But he releases him, right? Then they have to draft a defensive...
That one's complicated. I could give you more context on that. So it's complicated.
But either way, they have to then replace him with a second rounder high in the draft to replace him on the roster.
Well, the mistake there was not re-signing Settle.
Correct.
Ioannidis was likely on his way out, partially because he was making real money.
Right.
And obviously, they got a lot of defensive linemen making a lot of money. His future here is, there wasn't much of it. Yeah. And there was friction between him and the defensive line coach and techniques and all that stuff.
Right.
And so that one didn't, at the moment, I was like, oh, because he's a good player.
Yeah.
So when you cut a good player and you don't see it coming, that's always a surprise.
Yes.
But then in context of everything, I'm like, this makes sense. And then knowing what I know, it makes sense.
But
the one that was the mistake to me was Settle, because he didn't make a lot of money.
Yes.
So why in the world you didn't retain him did not make a lot of sense to me.
Correct. And then you ended up firing the defensive line coach 2 weeks into camp anyways.
Yes.
It's like,
what's happening?
What's happening here? So then just
I think there's a lot of pressure.
This is not that extreme,
Yes.
but still you drafted a running back high. You have told us Gibson was the starter. This guy's going to contribute. But now, literally one preseason game in, that's not the case. Oh, and by the way, you did sign that J.D. McKissick guy away from Buffalo to bring him in. So what does his role turn into now? Because now it seems like Gibson and him are doing almost the same exact thing. I'm just saying, this is just another one of those decisions where it's not working out, and instead of taking a side, he didn't take a side, and it's seemingly going sideways.
What this all feels like to me, and I don't know for sure, but it just, in being around it for a long time, it feels like people are feeling a lot of pressure.
Do we know why? Because I feel like it's self-pressure.
I agree.
Because
I said this from January on, when he kind of weirdly put himself on the hot seat.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there going, nobody's pressuring you that way.
Nobody.
There's not a whiff of that. Yeah, if you go 4-13, there's going to be a lot of questions to answer for sure. But I don't think that's going to happen. And you're also your own boss, which is really interesting too. And he kind of did that. And then, after they got Wentz, I went, well, that's risky.
Slightly, yeah.
It's risky. And then they've made some decisions here. And some of them I totally get, and some of them like Settle that, sometimes don't seem like a big deal at the time, but felt like a big deal to me and may be a big deal, here in the long term. And now all of a sudden we're in camp and they're like, everything's fine. And then a guillotine falls.
Right.
And you're like, what's that? And it's like everybody's real jumpy. Or somebody's tweeting, it's a Twitter murder of Scott Abraham. Like there's just a lot of... There's just a lot of like
knives out.
There are so there's a lot of, and it's self-pressure, because the weird part is nobody in the national media thinks they're going to do anything.
That's right.
So that's not happening. Nobody's saying they're going to. A couple people say they're going to win the division, and then they get laughed at. Or if someone says they might be an up-and-comer, they're like, well, that's an interesting theory.
Right.
There's nobody sitting around going, like Buffalo, if you don't win it this year, you guys are the worst. There's none of that.
Well, in fact, it's twofold, though, in their favor, in that everyone goes, oh, they're not going to do much, but everyone goes, we like that Ron Rivera guy, though. He's really going to hopefully turn it around. There's no pressure. There's last week they, Jason was fed up with the sensitivity of Wentz and went to his defense, right? And I felt like it was an overreaction, especially some of the things that he had said. I hear what he was saying about some of it, but I thought it was an overreaction. Going after Scott Abraham's character
was a little
much.
Calling his career what he called it was a little much, so it was an overreaction, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, we've had a couple things here that feel very... Everybody's jumpy.
Guys.
Everybody's a little jumpy. So I don't know what's going on, but I just get this air of they feel pressure to win, which I don't think is a bad thing, because the last couple of years, the first year, Rivera was sick, and he also was, in the midst of what was a wreck here, and all the headlines that were, it was a maelstrom. He walked into a difficult situation.
Yeah.
And I think the expectations were low. And he, honestly, with 7 wins and luckily winning the division, exceeded them, honestly.
Right.
And even remember, we were like, don't apologize for winning the division.
Right.
That don't happen around here that often. Don't apologize for that. And he came back, and even last year, though, he took the pressure off and was like, guys, we need to have some realistic expectations, right? Not this time.
Right.
This time, he keeps telling us, it's all going to be fine, and it's all going to be fine to a point where we are going to move forward, and it's like they're pressuring themselves to do this, and you can feel it. They fired an assistant coach in the middle of camp. Antonio Gibson fumbled the ball the first preseason game. They benched him and changed his role overnight. Overnight changed his role.
It's like going, I think we've all been here before, where you're either at a dinner party or a cookout or something, and things are kind of going sideways a little bit. You're like, let's just order some KFC. Let's order some Popeyes real quick. But the propane's gone out, meat looks still frozen. Everything's going wrong that can go wrong, and everyone's like, hey, be cool. We're all
Sorry.
chilling. We're all having a beer. Like, let's just order something. We'll be all right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the host is like, no. Got to do it this way.
Yeah.
Or else we're going to freak out here.
You're gonna freak out.
Everybody's like, no, man, we're all just hanging out. That's how it feels right now.
It does. It does. The pressure feels self-inflicted. Obviously, everybody wants them to win. Obviously, I think they have a competitive team. I've been talking about this for months. Like, I think they could be a 9-10 win team, and that's probably the playoffs in the NFC this year, one way or the other. It probably is. And I still feel like that could happen. But the pressure in mid-August feels a little accentuated. And maybe it's just, and Rivera said it from the get-go, I think he is feeling some kind of self-inflicted, I've got to do better win now. And if these guys aren't following me down that path, I am going to knife them, like along the way. So I think everybody ought to know this is serious this time around. He's serious. Like, let's go. We need to do it this way. Let's go. And I don't know how many more messages he could send in a couple of weeks.
The other thing, too, is they have not even let anyone try to touch the narrative of their best defensive player is going to be out for question mark.
But he doesn't want to hear it about that. I don't blame him, honestly. Like, they have 3 other first-round picks on their defensive line.
Sure.
Like, I'm sorry. What, you can't survive without him for a few weeks? If you can't, that's a bigger problem's on you.
I'm just saying.
Like, you should be, with the schedule that you have, bare minimum 2-2, if not 3-1, when he may first come back, right? And I don't even know that that's a guarantee, but and then if you're 3-1 and he comes back, oh boy, let's go.
Right.
Right?
But I'm just saying, your guy that did win defensive rookie of the year, and then
I hear you.
was out last year. I'm just saying, could be used.
No team outside of a quarterback is one player, though.
Yeah,
nobody.
That's fair.
And I don't feel. I don't know, but there is like this pressure that is mounting. Whoo, boy, it's too early for this.
I agree.
It's too early for this. I can't take it. I'm suffocating. But you know what, though? There is also a part of me that goes, you know what? Expecting some results, that's a new one around here. And frankly, I don't mind that. Aren't we in the business of winning anyway? Shouldn't we be pressuring these guys to perform? Isn't 7 wins not good enough?
It's the Memorial Day cookout, though. You got all summer. Like, first one goes wrong.
Yeah.
We're all right.
You burned a hot dog. It's
all right.
fine.
It's June.
I got a whole pack of them over here. It's cool.
Right. Out of propane? Hey, all right, man.
Just go down the street. They got more.
We'll go get some more. We can order something.
Yeah.
No.
No.
It has to be this way.
This way. That thing of propane works. Woo. I can't take it. It's too early for this. I like when the pressure ramps up in week 4 or 5.
It's also a little chaotic to see what they do and don't care about the most, too. Like, clearly,
what do you mean?
Like, clearly running back
Yeah.
now is this huge deal. Like, yes, fumbling the ball is a big deal. I get it.
Yeah.
But I just thought Gibson had earned himself a little bit more of a, hey, yeah, he's still going to be our starter for right now.
You know, it's funny, though. After seeing Robinson 2 weeks, it's kind of like, actually, he's the guy who should be running in between the tackles. And so if they, and I've complained often in the past of them not adjusting quickly enough to obvious things.
Right.
And if they actually going to do that now, then I will praise them for looking at it and going, you know what?
And
like, we'll take the hits, and he's going to take some hits to his reputation. I think they could have handled him a little softer than allowing it to go the way it went last week, which was, you've been benched. And it was like,
yes.
And they could have gotten in the way of, I think, a little more ahead of, hey, like, we've said from the get-go this was going to be a competition. It's not like he's not going to play. Of course he's going to play. It's just that, what you've seen inside the tackles, we're seeing it too, and we're shifting stuff around and we're figuring it. They let it linger the whole week where Gibson was kind of hung out to dry.
Much more, and I said this, and no one really kind of shared the same sentiment. I said this, it was probably more about Robinson actually winning the job more than Gibson losing it. Gibson just happened to have a moment where they went, oh, there's our opportunity, and Robinson's not going to be the starter.
By throwing him out there and making him return a kick, though, even though that might be the right thing to do, it felt very message-oriented.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. Okay, let's all chill out. We'll all chill out.
R-E-A-L-L-A.
All right. Be right back. Bram Weinstein Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.